Hi Claire, this is Rachel Burkle describing to you the practicum experience I had this semester. This semester I worked with a middle school level student and a kindergarten student. I'm going to start off talking about Jace, the kindergarten student. Jace is in my class. This is just kind of a representative of Jace and his mom and his brother. And here's his writing. That actually is a kind of something to know. So at the beginning of the year, he lived with his mom, dad, brother, sister, and currently he's just living with mom and the siblings. And he's only been in school 3 days since before Thanksgiving. So I've been kind of holding off trying to finish up assessments with him, and he's not here today either. So it's been kind of hard. Their family's been undergoing some significant changes, and I think that is affecting his learning. Jace came to Reedsburg Schools last spring. He came from Massachusetts. He attended 4K for just a little bit. He started kindergarten this year knowing how to write his name, but he didn't know what the letters were. So I think he had practiced kind of the design of it. He knew the letter X and he had 0 sounds. He had 4 of 20 rhyming opportunities. He was able to rhyme. In his beginning sound awareness, he had 9 of 20 in the beginning sound awareness section of the PALS is what I used with him, or what we used with him. His writing at the beginning of the year, I did a writing sample with him too, and his writing was to do a drawing, but he wasn't able to tell me anything about his drawing. So when I used my scoring rubric, I gave him the 1 point for the drawing, and that was his score, 1 out of the 18 possible points. And then finally in kindergarten, we do the name writing assessment. And because letter awareness was something that he struggles with, I thought, let's work first with the letters in his name. And he did eventually write the word Jace without a model or support by him, so he ended up with knowing how to write his name in mid-September. So I told you that I told you that rhyming and beginning letter sounds were a struggle for him, as were letter identification and sounds. So that's why I decided to focus primarily on phonemic awareness activities. Typically I do the phonemic awareness work as a class earlier in the morning, and my fine motor skills are earlier in the morning. But this young man rolls into school around 10 when he comes. So I decided to have our quiet time after lunch be a time that I would tutor one-on-one with Jace. In my paperwork, I described to you how we did some letter writing practice daily. Then we would do name writing practice daily. We eventually moved to using our magnetic trays to build his name, and then to mix and fix and to write. We worked daily on the ABCs, letter name. Oh, and you can see here, this is an old one, but we had to circle and find the letters in his name, say the letter and the sound that it makes, and talk about the picture. And he's not a very expressive young man, so I thought that was some worthwhile conversations to have with him. And he eventually got to being more demonstrative with his knowledge. Also for fine motor work, we did some one-on-one work, just some activities. But typically I would start the sessions with ABC work, and then we would do fine motor, but I always had him use Play-Doh to like roll out a snake and make the letters of his name. Anyway, it's been tricky to work with him though, because he hasn't been healthy, or there's been family things that have been happening, so he hasn't been at school. But the post work that I did finally get to assess with him, I was pretty excited. He really nailed rhyming. So he had 20 out of 20 on the rhyming portion of the second PALS assessment that I gave him, and about 80% of the beginning sound awareness. So that was great. I was so pleased to see that. I wanted to do the letter identification update with him, but he hasn't been here, so he does have the letters in his name. He typically mixes up Y with B, but then I was kind of bummed. The only letter he knew at the beginning of the year was X, and he didn't know it the last time I checked in with him, which was like November 30th. So, yeah. But in the area of writing, he started off the year with that picture I showed you, and then the sample that I did on November 15th was writing, and he does have some letters down below to go with his writing. Our kindergarten scoring rubric, he gives him a point for having some letters or some words along with his writing, and then to be able to retell what he was writing about. He was able to write those letters though with some support from an adult, so I couldn't give him the point, but I did give him a point for being able to retell. So hopefully we're going to see him this week and keep plugging away at it. The valuable part for me as an educator was going through this practicum and having to do the documentation of the activities, the progress monitoring that I did with him. So I think that'll be helpful for me if I need to do a referral with him, or if we're talking about retaining, because he's missed 28 out of 70 days of school, and then not to mention those tardies. So anyway, so that's my young man Jace. And then for my 5th grade student, that was really fun, so I wanted to end on him. My 5th grade student, we did the assessments I gave this young man were a reading inventory to find out what his interests were. We did the words their way spelling inventory, and I used that to identify gaps or areas that we could work on in reading foundational skills. And then we did the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system, and he was instructional at a level U at the beginning and at the end. Yeah, he was instructional for both, but that's fine. He that's fine. The main thing that I worked on with this young man, because the instructional level for a 5th grader to be at a level U is in an area of great concern. The things that I really wanted to work with him on were some of the foundational skills for phonics. So for example, float, he had O, and I wanted to work with him on some vowel teams. The other areas that he struggled with on this were like shopping was one that indicated to me that he needed to revisit the rule where we double the consonant if it's a short vowel and we're adding an end. So yeah, things like taped and tapped and hopped and hoped. We worked with that. I'm not sure that it stuck with him, because it didn't stick with him when I did a post test. I think that he's a young man that if it's important to him, he'll remember it. If it's not important to him, he might not remember it. So the main meat and potatoes that we worked on together was reading some historical fiction. His interest areas were things like graphic novels and World War II. So what we read together the most of our time was a Nathan Hale. Here's a graphic sample of the graphic novel. It's a World War II story. We did a know, want, learn to find out what he knew about the topic that we'd be talking about, and he knows a ton about World War II and fighters, and so that indicates to me he's capable of memorizing things. It's just what's important to him. And so we read that together. We did a character analysis of the main character, And then we also did a sequencing of the timeline of the events in the particular raid that we were reading about. What was really cool is one of the admirals in the Navy is from Richland Center. I was talking to my husband about it, the book that I was reading, because I was reading it at home, and Phil's like, well, he was from Richland Center. So then I printed out some articles, and we got a chance to do some nonfiction reading. The main thing that tripped up the young man on the Fountas and Pinnell wasn't the comprehension, it was the accuracy and the omissions of small words. That's kind of what he did, is he would omit words and he would get a reading too quickly. So he had a 95% for his accuracy and he had 8 out of 9 on comprehension. The only comprehension thing that he would miss would be the genre. And he got nonfiction and fiction mixed up. And my choice of literature to work with him didn't help, because I think that these Nathan Hale books, Hazardous Tales, would be fiction, but they're categorized as historical fiction in some places, in some ways, because it crosses the line. One of the characters is fictional. So anyway, we had some really good, meaningful discussions about what's realistic fiction and what's historical fiction and what's nonfiction. And I really enjoyed working with him. I think he had a good time, and at the very least, I taught him that reading and discussing books with somebody is something really super fun to do and a great lifelong habit. And I really enjoyed working with him. So thank you.